Hello. Hello. God, I'm late. They fixed it. Look, Bex fixed it. Any text to news from Bex? Yeah, she said, just wanted to say a little something to all my Path of Exile pals. I know the last couple of months have been a bit dog shit, but there's a lot of cool stuff going on behind the scenes and that we just can't talk about yet. Everything is going to be okay. Hang in there. Same thing she said last league. She didn't say that last league. Is that a verified account? Oh shit. What if it's a fake account? Mathel's response was good? Wait, what was Mathel's response? Please hurry. All I want is keep suffix and prefix. I was thinking about this in the shower, Glorious. I was like, I read this tweet and I had a shower and I was like, what do they need to do? I was like, what do they need to do? They need to well, they don't have to keep prefix suffix in again, because obviously they don't want to, otherwise they just would have done it. So maybe just some sort of expanded influence mechanic but then they can't just have it be influence only, you know? TLDR, they definitely need to do something about the crafting system. But they didn't even mention crafting in the manifesto thingy, right? You didn't clean your nuts? That's what this was. You didn't see that? Yeah, they didn't mention crafting at all though. Hopefully this 5th post is about itemization or crafting or whatever. I was actually thinking in the shower, should we write a list of all the shit? It doesn't necessarily have to have solutions. That's GGG's prerogative, whether or not they view them as problems and whether or not they have solutions implemented next league. But it would be cool, right? Everything that we would like to see improved. They made spell suppression, grace, determination, defiance banner worse, and they also made crafting worse. And so you do this gameplay loop and you end up with far worse gear than you did in the past, but it's serviceable. But then on top of that, Arch Nemesis means that the monsters you're fighting are also insane compared to the monsters you were fighting in Sentinel. Naturally speaking, these Arch Nemesis monsters are just more dangerous rares. There's less rares, but they're just more dangerous. So you're fighting more dangerous encounters and you're fighting with worse gear, right? And so it just feels extra difficult. It almost feels like there's another gear progression step, but there's no way to get that gear now. So it feels like they've added an additional gameplay step, an additional gearing step, right? But there's no real way to get that gear. So when you've done your basic spell suppression, grace, determination, influence, implicit gear step, when you've done that, that's fine. But you should feel like you can comfortably do tier 16s. Can't, right? You can't comfortably feel like that. How do you go from cap spell suppression, determination, defiance, banner, grace to the next step? Do you think the reason we're baby raging this hard about early gear progression, well, when I say we, I mean him, but do you think it's just because we basically don't have Harvest anymore? Harvest doesn't exist in early maps because of how fucking terrible it is on white map. Imagine if you just didn't have Harvest at all, right? Which you pretty much don't. That does explain that gap that I was talking about. You don't get the free 5-link, so you don't have a 5-link anymore. Or if you do have a 5-link, it's gonna be on a worse base because you haven't fused it yourself, most likely. You've just found one. Or it's corrupted or some shit. Or using a tabula. And then you also don't have the ability to roll nice chaos rares on your rings. Dude, if I would honestly be I'd be annoyed if they buffed Harvest, because they buffed it and nerfed it, buffed it and nerfed it so many times that if they buff it again, you know they're just gonna nerf it again, and it's just gonna make the same problem worse in the future. I don't want them to. I honestly, at this point, I don't want them to do anything to Harvest. I want them to. I want them to spread that power to other stuff.
He's mechanical god.
Because at the moment, it seems like they were well, everyone's using Harvest to craft. We can't make Harvest as powerful. But then they didn't redistribute that power to other sources of crafting. They just took it out of the game. They could just add recombinators. Literally just adding recombinators would have done so much. 3.2 wish list. Recombinators. I played in Quiz Hex Blast, and once I got Glorious Vanity, I had no problem progressing to Reds. See, that's my problem. Glorious Vanity is a 50-hour grind, unironically. For context, actually, that grind is how we used to do the Gauntlet. So what you just said is the game feels fine after I literally play the game as if it was exactly the same as Gauntlet. because that's unironically, you guys will attest to this, every single gauntlet, that's exactly what we did. We just farmed low tier Legion until we had a Glorious Vanity or a Lethal Pride, and then we were able to do red maps in the gauntlet. And if you're suggesting that the game should feel as hard as gauntlet, I don't think they should. I mean, don't get me wrong, time and a place, boys. Like, I love the gauntlet, but like, it shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to farm a Glorious Vanity to do reds. That's crazy. I do want to reiterate, this all these problems get solved via trade, which is why I didn't really have too much of a problem in trade. I don't think they should ever consider SSF to be the way they balance the game, but I do think that making SSF feel better naturally makes trade feel better because you're less reliant upon other people to progress the content. Like, I think the better SSF feels, the better the game feels for everybody. I genuinely think that. Especially because a lot of people don't like to have to trade. Like, if it feels like you have to trade to get into red maps, it feels bad. Because honestly, I will say right now, gearing is not a problem in Trade League. It really isn't. But a lot of the gear that I farmed was very, very cheap. You're playing the game non-stop. That's like such a cop-out. Because you're going to like immediately end the discussion if you just say, oh, you just play the game like 12 million hours a day. You're trying to say that your perspective is irrelevant because you played this game too much. Therefore, you can't have this conversation. I think you guys should be mature enough to understand that when I say 70 hours, for me, this is, 4 days. For you, this is 40 days. But it doesn't matter. Just pretend I'm saying 40 days, and then it's fine. Like, I go through an accelerated gear progression, but I still feel the problem. I just feel it in a different way. I personally don't think that there's a problem with more and more games being balanced around people who literally get paid to play. If you think GGG balances the game around people who pay to play, I have actually played more Path of Exile as a non-streamer, and so your opinion is that of a whiny little complaining Andy, alright? I played this game from 2012 to, when did I start streaming? I started streaming in 2018. Just know that this version of me thinks you're pathetic. This version of me that didn't stream thinks you're pathetic. The version of me that streams today has to pretend to give a shit about your opinion. But back then I just used to think you were shit and you complained. I have to hold back my takes so hard because I stream. The version of me that didn't stream used to think so many people just complained because they was shit. My point is, we play the same game. I played the game more, but I still go through the early struggles. For me, they're early, for you, they're late game. But we play the same game. You act like we play a different video game entirely. You want to hear what my mum said, actually? She said, so now that you're out and about, you're on your own, have you met someone yet? And I was like, no. And she was so disappointed. And then my sister in the background was like, blah, 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 blah. And then my mum said, oh, and your sister says, have you met a guy? Have you met a boy yet then? Oh, chat. Oh, no. I didn't have the heart to tell my mum that the reason I haven't met anyone is because I just started playing RuneScape again. I think that to get into red maps to the point where the game feels smooth is very difficult. It's very, 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 very difficult. That gap between yellows and reds is enormous. It always has been. So if you're a casual player, you probably don't know about this. But I'll tell you. I'll tell you. So this is tier and difficulty. It used to work like this, right? It used to just go boop. But then what they did was this. Boop. And so this is like red maps right here. This is red maps. And the reason they did this is to essentially...
My collection grows.
Boop.
I don't know why they did this. I guess just to like account for power creep, I suppose. Like a tier 16 map boss is way harder than a tier 10. Like way harder. Yo chat, should we address build diversity as well? I don't even know if I give a fuck about build diversity. Yeah, this might be a hot take, but I feel like build diversity is like the last of our problems. Because if the state of the game is good, they can change build diversity in 5 minutes. Like, it would take them literally 5 minutes, dude. I mean, they're not gonna spend 5 minutes on it because they like to sell these things as a big reveal. You know how you change the meta? Delete, Helix, and Seismic. Whoa, the meta is completely different now. Oh my god, oh my god. Like, I feel like meta shifting is like super easy compared to making the actual state of the game good. As Alk said, give us something new to solve. I love how Alk says it in a way smarter way that sounds smarter, but it's the same shit. Give us a new problem to solve. It's exactly this, it's exactly right. It's exactly right. Like, forcing us to play the game differently, aka making us solve new problems. 100%. It's the same shit, dude. Rarity adjustments to God Touched. Well, MF adjustment. Buffs to loot goblins. Wait, buffs to change. How do I word this? Previous way of playing game. League content stacking equals giga loot, right? So this is like Breach, Delirium, Legion. This is like your crazy like giga stacked shit, right? This is the fun stuff, Beyond, etc. Encounter based content rares equals loot goblins. I think they're committed to this. I mean, I don't know if you guys figured this out yet. This is going to happen no matter what. They have not only doubled down, tripled down, they've like pentupled down at this point. This is staying into the game. I think their intention is to make loot goblins feel rewarding and enjoyable to encounter and to defeat. So I think if loot goblins are here to stay, make loot goblins more apparent and proportionally rewarding. Yeah, I think MF should not affect them, or it shouldn't affect them as much. Stop calling it a loot goblin then. See, this is why I think human beings are fucking stupid. Because you could change them from being... So, loot goblins, they mean the same thing. I don't like your wording. Well, bitch, grow up. It's the same thing. The more difficult and frustrating it is, the goal should be to make it less frustrating and to add rewards proportional to said difficulty. I'm pretty sure this is what's gonna happen. This is way too much bullshit ground effects. Well, I don't know if you know this, but the reason they add ground effects to something is so you don't step in it. And so the idea is to add mechanics to these fights. Now the problem, you're just describing bosses. Wow, you finally figured it out. They want these monsters to feel like mini bosses. That's the whole point. And they want them to give you loot proportional to a mini boss. The problem is, 1, the loot is too fucking basic. They just haven't added enough loot. 2, it scales with Magic Find, which was honestly a bad decision. At least the way they've currently implemented it. So I guess what they should do, right? What they should do is they should make it more clear when these difficult encounters spawn, and proportionally rewarding. I don't like I said, execution is one of those cancer mods, right? They should just make it like rare and rewarding, and more telegraphed. I feel like that's like a solution to execution specifically, but I feel like you could apply this to everything. That's actually a good game design question. Do you think that encountering difficulty that you were not expecting and having to choose how to fight it, or hell, whether or not to fight it, is good? Depends on how often. See, I agree with Son of Sevenless. I think the problem is the frequency at which we're encountering these mini bosses, and that the rewards are not proportional, and that the telegraphing could always be better. For example, Executioner's problem is that when it spawns, you just randomly start dying. A mob spawns and you just start dying randomly. It doesn't feel very telegraphed. I think map icon is enough, chat. You just need to know that you're fighting some fucked up mob, basically. Can you sum up your thoughts so far? My thoughts so far is that Bex has recognized that the state of the game is not the best. My interpretation of Bex's tweet, the developers have a plan of where they want the game to be for Path of Exile 2. Their plan is malleable, but they do have a plan regardless. Their plan is to remove a lot of the bloat and to add rewarding, difficult fights throughout the game, right? The current idea behind this is Arch Nemesis. So the way I interpret this is their intention is to... This is their intention. It's worth pointing out that their intention is different from the execution. Because the execution, this league, is fucking terrible, obviously. But it does, in my opinion, paint where the direction they're headed. The intention is to make the entire game have rewarding encounter, like to have rewards, right? To have suitable rewards, rather than it being huge spikes of difficulty during League mechanics. So rather than have Legion be like 10 times more difficult than a regular rare, bridge that gap and bridge the rewards at the same time. Did GGG ask people like you and Ziz what you would change in the game? I can't speak for Ziz because I don't know, but they did ask me for feedback, and you know what I said? I said nothing. I just said nothing. I literally didn't reply. Well, what I was gonna say was basically, I don't believe I should give feedback to GGG because the game should not be balanced around me. I think I can have a conversation about this with you. I don't think I should have this conversation with DGG. I think it's different. The reason I have this discussion with you guys and not with GGG, this list is not supposed to be productive. It's supposed to see what they do with what we want, and that's it. It's not really supposed to be productive. I wouldn't want it to be productive. I don't think 3.19 was made with any single person in mind. I think it was made with PoE 2 in mind. I genuinely believe we are guinea pigs in an experiment for PoE 2. I don't think people play 3.19 and are like, yay! I think people play 3.19 and are like, what the fuck are they doing? And I think the answer is they're just experimenting. Is there any chance to reverse the Exalt Divine change? I haven't touched on that because I don't think it's a big problem. Is there anything that's really bad about it? Add some div cards. That's literally all I think they need to do. Like, that's seriously all I think they need to do. Divine is not as cool looking as Exalts. Is it really? Wait, is that Divine Orb just Resident Sleeper? PoE Divine Orb. Chills. Did you guys just add an emote? You actually did.